From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Thanks, Ira Spitzer. Thank you. Welcome to Monday's programme. Are you well? Are you well? Good weekend, eh? No? Okay. Yes, it's been a beautiful day in Salford here. Lovely day after the freezing cold weather we've had the last couple of nights. I'm in good form. Two terrific guests for you today as usual. The usual applies. You can talk to me. You can join in on Twitter. You know how it works by now, so I won't repeat it.
Richie Allen.
It's the Richie Allen Show. Broadcasting live on richieallen.co.uk and multiple platforms around the world. And now, here's your host, Richie Allen.
Now, Caroline Stephens is a financial consultant and she's a teacher. And she was once a UKIP European parliamentary candidate. Very bright lady, Caroline. Was on with me about 3.5 months ago. She's got a terrific YouTube channel where she talks about the European Union and, well, much more besides. We're going to talk about the Lisbon Treaty. We're going to talk about January 31st and the prospect of this country ever properly leaving the European Union. Caroline Stephens joins the show in around about 20 minutes time, just over 20 minutes. And later on in the programme, a very old and dear friend of mine, Jordan Maxwell, returns to the show. One of the preeminent scholars, researchers in the field of the occult and the nature of reality. Extraordinary man. He'll be live from Flagstaff in Arizona in R2. Monday's Richie Allen Radio Show, January 20th, 2020. Yeah, right, all right. Enough of that. Yes, looking forward to Jordan. Spoke to him briefly last night. It's been about 4 or 5 months since he was on. And before that was like 1.5, 2 years before he was on. So it was time to get him back on the programme. Yeah. I'm in fine fettle. I'm not feeling as bad now as I was this morning. The old breathing has been a bit laboured. But I'll be fine. I'm in good shape, you see. It's always good to be in good shape. Yes, did turn into a glorious day. The fog lifted, bright blue skies, absolutely marvellous. Hey, we love to laugh, you and me. We love a good giggle. Because if you didn't laugh, well, sure, you'd go mad. And we need to laugh today because apparently today is Blue Monday.
How does it feel?
Not that Blue Monday. Not that one. It's Blue Monday. Apparently it's the most depressing day of the year. And it's been trending on Twitter today. Where did this come from, this notion of Blue Monday? Well, apparently a psychologist called Cliff Arnold, or Arnold, A-R-N-A-L-L. What do you think? Answers on a postcard. Cliff Arnold. Back in 2004, 15, 16 years ago, he coined Blue Monday. The third Monday in January is when we're supposed to be the most depressed that we ever are. Or ever are likely to be. But how could you be depressed when you're a Kay Burley superfan like me? When you're a Ginger Ninja lover like me? The gift that keeps on giving. Breaking news this morning from Kay Burley.
If you're watching Kay Burley at breakfast, it is Blue Monday today, third Monday in January. Apparently we're all really miserable. So we thought we would cheer you up here at Kay Burley at breakfast. We're going to give some of our new mugs away. There you go. They're just in. We've literally hot off the press.
Brilliant. All over the country, men were removing the nooses from their necks and stepping down off the chairs. There's light at the end of the tunnel. A Kay Burley at breakfast. Reusable plastic cup. Way to go, Kay. How do you win one, Kay?
All you have to do is tweet me and let me know what date I joined Sky News. What date do you think I joined Sky News if you would like one of these monkeys? They are...
Monkeys?
Much sought after, let me know. Tweet me directly if you would like to, at Kay Burley. Also, if that's not enough...
Oh, that's not enough. What's next, Kay?
Joined by the stand-up who has helped break down taboos around mental health. Hopefully that will cheer you up
Jesus
as well.
Christ.
This Monday morning.
A stand-up who's broken down the taboos about mental health. Yeah, that'll cheer us up. A shit comic talking about mental health issues. Mental health is everywhere. What was that question again? How do we win the cup?
All you have to do is tweet me and let me know what date I joined Sky News. What
date did you join? What date did you join Sky News? Well, we know it was a Wednesday, the day after Rupert took you from behind in the boardroom, with Bill O'Reilly pleasuring himself in the cupboard. It was a Wednesday. No. On a serious note, it's getting ridiculous, isn't it? This mental health stuff. Every time you turn the television or the radio on, mental health. Are you looking after your mental health? Or you are mentally unwell and you don't want to talk about it because you're a man and you're a toxic man with your toxic masculinity on you, you big baldy gammon bastard, you. You don't want to talk about your mental health because you haven't got the courage. But I'm fine, actually. Fuck off, we're all fine. If Sky has Kay Burley, the BBC has Nikki Campbell. Nikki wanted to go on a journey this morning on BBC Radio 5 Live Breakfast to find out what white privilege really is. So he asked Helen Pluckmore, great name. Helen Pluckmore is writing a book on the subject of white privilege. What is white privilege, Helen? Says Nikki. What is white privilege, Helen? Says Nikki. And while you're listening to this, note that Nikki isn't really listening to Helen's answer. He's waiting for a chance to jump in with a classic bit of virtue signalling. So he asks Helen Pluckmore, what's white privilege?
White privilege is a concept developed by Peggy McIntosh in 1989, which looks at all the non-measurable but influential ways in which white people might have more sort of social capital than people who are not white, if they're more seen as more trustworthy or if they are seen as more competent. It's this all these sort of assumptions that people can have that could give white people a benefit over non-white people.
And given the insidious and overt racism as well in our society, do white people with so-called white privilege, they can never really understand what that is like and how that has disadvantaged people, can they?
What kind of fuckery is this?
Oh, Nikki. She gave a definition of white privilege. Nikki is too stupid, well, he's not really, to listen to what she's saying because she's very sceptical about the notion of white privilege. Nikki's too busy waiting for a chance for a bit of virtue signalling. And, well, let's hear what he said again.
And given the insidious and overt racism...
What was that?
And given the insidious and overt racism as well...
Insidious and overt racism?
In our society...
In society?
Do white... People with so-called white privilege, they can never really understand.
We can't. We could never understand what it's like to be oppressed or for somebody to, I don't know, to marginalise us. We wouldn't have a clue, would we, Nikki?
And what that is like and how that has disadvantaged people, can they?
Utterly fucking worthless Nikki Campbell. What a cock! There's a guy who's forgotten the ancient art of listening back to your programmes and cringing. I do that all the time, and I do cringe. Did you really say that? Asswipe. But there's hope, though. People are sick of it now. All over the television this morning, white privilege was everywhere, and journalists are fighting back. Here's the Telegraph's Asa Bennett on Sky with Adam Bolton. And they were talking about the actor Lawrence Fox's appearance on BBC Question Time last Thursday. You'll know by now that Fox dismissed a woman of colour. How dare he? She was in the audience, a woman of colour. She called out his white privilege when he said that Meghan Markle wasn't the victim of racism. Asa Bennett from The Telegraph was watching.
Well, certainly the crowd at Liverpool, for the Question Time audience, seemed to be very fed up and hugely sympathetic with Lawrence Fox because, well, let's bear in mind for a second, Liverpool, the place that still elects 5 Labour MPs, whereas cheering him on all sorts of topics, ranging from, the sort of how PC is making us, turn a blind eye to the Manchester grooming scandal, and also to, he was getting them roaring with laughter at the line about, oh yes, well, my carbon footprint's huge, just like all actors are, but we then lecture people about their own afterwards. And above all, when Shami Chakrabarti, depicted in the cartoon by Brighty, they were talking about Labour leadership, and he said he wanted Keir Starmer because he thought that he would be the best to beat Boris Johnson. Shami was like, surely one of the women. Oh, fine, the women then, is that better? And then the audience were loving that as well. So I think clearly they are reaching many voters a sort of huge amount of sympathy, particularly, and they're seeing a very refreshing sort of character, someone who is a lovey, but not of the left.
Yeah. Very good. That's right, Shami Chakrabarti, or Shami Chakra fucking Barty, did say to him when he said, yeah, Keir Starmer, because I think Starmer's probably got the best chance of beating Johnson, because he is Johnson. Keir Starmer's the same. He's the same guy. as Boris Johnson. Same thing, same guy, same background. And Chakrabarty said, why none of the women? Yeah. What about Lucy Fisher from The Times? Lucy Fisher was sitting alongside Asa Bennett, and she's also getting a bit fed up of this white privilege nonsense. Here she is, Lucy Fisher.
I think he possibly didn't handle it in the most sensitive fashion, just to
She's saying she didn't think that Lawrence Fox handled it in the most sensitive fashion, but
just to completely dismiss it and not to take on board the fact that he may not be alert to some of the undertones that some of the people who have criticised the press have picked up on. But I do feel that there is this sort of space in the public discourse now where many people fear to tread. They feel they don't have the right linguistic kind of vocabulary, fear for sort of saying what they think, but somehow falling into a trap. And I think that that's why his sort of comments on Question Time have caused so much, sparked so much attention, because people feel they're unable to say what they think without being classed as a bigot.
Well done! Very well said by Lucy Fisher. People are fed up of it, and they're properly fed up of it. And they're starting to stand up, and I didn't think it was possible. They're starting to stand up and say, hang on a second, don't dare call me a racist, don't gaslight me. I say what I say because it's what I believe, not because I hold any malice, in my thoughts for people of a different ethnic background. It's got nothing to do with that, and people are standing up. Lawrence Fox himself was on Julia Hartley-Brewer's talk radio show today. Again, on this subject, here he is today, Lawrence Fox, the actor and musician, apparently.
You can't be a wokeist without blaming everybody for being racist, and you have to be very intersectional and victim-y. So,
and you have to think that the world's a bad place.
Yeah, and it's just not hopeful. What world do you want to live in? A world where everyone's racist, or do you want to live in a world where we're trying to come together?
Do you think this country is racist?
I think there's racism everywhere, but I don't think we're a systemically racist country. I don't see a lot of racism, but then again, I am a straight white male.
And this came up again. You actually accused a woman of colour of being racist herself because she talked about your white privilege. And again, this has been, sort of the intersectionality and this sort of diversity issue and identity issues about you're a white male. You're privileged. You're from a posh family. You're in a career where you've got lots of links. You're not allowed to speak about anything, are you? I mean, straight, white, middle class, or posh. I mean, I don't think you're allowed to have an opinion on anything, are you?
I'm at the bottom of the intersectional ladder, that's for sure. But yeah, I think she was being racist. At the end of the day, I didn't raise colour at all or anything, and she went, "You're a straight white male," and technically that's racist. If I'd described her in her, in
you can't say that
version.
You're black. Yes.
So, and I was really surprised that it created such a drama, but I think it created such a drama because actually the British are very patient, and I think we're tired of being told that we're racist by the people that we pay money for and support and generally applaud. So it just hurts that little bit extra when you're called a racist on top of it. What's so wonderful is we live in this amazingly tolerant society, the most tolerant progressive society out there.
All of the evidence points to this.
Then you suddenly go, well, we've got to have something to get upset about. So they get upset about their oppression. And also, I think often it's a middle class thing. It's about going, I need to feel like I'm oppressed as well. And we do what we often do in this country, which is, lay all our troubles on the working man. And I think the working man's tired of it.
The working man might be tired of it. Francis Leader, who's a friend of ours and a guest on the programme from time to time, asking me, can I get the use of gaslighting right, please, Richie? Francis, as far as I'm concerned, I'm using the word in the proper context. If you keep telling people whom are not racist that they are racist, and worse still, tell them that they don't know that they are racist, you are telling them effectively that they are losing their mind or incapable of understanding their own minds. So it is gaslighting in the context of how that term has been defined in the Oxford Dictionary. That is the definition of it, as far as I understand it. You tell somebody that you're racist, you have got racist feelings, and you're like, well, I don't. And then they tell you, well, you do. It's just that you don't realise you do. As far as I understand it, that's gaslighting. But maybe I'm wrong. I'm happy to be corrected because I'm often wrong. There's no doubt about that. 18 minutes past the hour, the Richie Allen radio show, none like it. Salford. Broadcasting live from Salford, Fab Radio 2, triggerwarning.tv, multiple other channels, and richieallen.co.uk, which is under construction and will be ready very soon. Now, listen to this. And before you hear what I'm about to do here or say here, remember who you're talking to. I'm a guy who is a socialist. I think that those who blame their misfortune, who blame their lot in life on ethnic minorities, they're not racist, they just don't understand what's going on, right? Don't be blaming what's happening to you and your problem with migration or ethnic minorities. They're not the problem, they're a symptom. They didn't create the problem, okay? Yes, it is a problem when you have towns and cities where the population is increasing rapidly and public services aren't able to cope. That is a problem. But don't blame the migrants for it. Been saying that for years. That's a socialist principle on that. Now, I'm giving this preamble because some of you will scream, I think, when you hear this next bit. BBC Radio 5 Live was reporting on extreme poverty in Enfield this morning. And I noticed something. And I just wonder, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am talking through my backside. And you know you can tell me that and I won't get, well, annoyed. I'm better than Grimesy and Stormzy. Did you hear that? Talking through my backside if you want, but I won't get annoyed. Right. Listen to Rachel Bird and BBC Radio 5 Live talking about extreme poverty in Enfield. Listen carefully.
6:45.
A report about the causes and effects of poverty is being presented to the House of Lords today. The study, which was commissioned by the London Borough of Enfield, looks at what life is like for those living below the poverty line. Is this you at the moment? Is this something you've experienced at some point in your life? Let us know what it's like. What are the sort of daily, weekly struggles? It highlights the problems of private rental tenancies, the rising cost of utilities and food, pressure to pay for things like school trips, lack of facilities for children in poorer areas. Our reporter Leslie Ashwell has been taking a look at all of this. Morning, Leslie.
Now, Leslie Ashwell is a reporter and she has been looking at the extremes in Enfield, because some parts of the Enfield area are doing well, but other parts are not doing well at all. In fact, they're very, very poor. So in parts of Enfield, Leslie, the reporter, says to Rachel, yes, it is pretty bad. Very, 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 very bad poverty, crime and mental health issues. Believe it or not, she does say mental health issues. If you don't believe me, you can listen to the podcast on BBC Radio 5 Live. But it isn't relevant. This is what's relevant. And it just got me thinking, maybe I'm talking through my arse, as I said. What happens next is they say that Leslie spoke to a resident. And I swear to God, I'm in the park very early this morning and I'm listening to this and I got a bit of a sinking feeling. I just knew that the resident would be a woman from an ethnic minority background. And I was right. Have a listen.
So let's get an idea of what this is like for people living this. Tell us about Mahalia.
Mahalia.
Yeah.
Mahalia, not Sue Smith or Jerry Murphy or Alan, I don't know, Minter, former boxer, or Jeremy Daly. No, Mahalia. Anyway.
She is a single mum. She does live in the aforementioned Edmonton Green area. She was a care worker until she was recently injured and it forced her out of her job.
Hi, my name is Mahalia. I'm a single mum. I've got two grown-ups and one junior at the moment who's 10 years old and has a bit of...
Mahalia sounds like she's from Africa. I could be wrong. She could be from some other part of the world. But anyway.
Extra needs. I've been out of work since 2014 because I had a bad back, really bad back, because I had a fall on my job.
Anyway, let me end it there. I'm sure Mahalia is a lovely lady. And Mahalia is not the problem. She's not anybody's problem. But is there some sort of programming going on there with the BBC? Isn't it funny you get a feeling in your stomach? As they were doing that this morning, they said, we're going to hear from a resident in Enfield. I knew it would be a woman from an ethnic minority background. And it was. Of all the people in Enfield, all the highways and byways, to choose a lady who sounds like she's got African heritage. right? So think about that. Don't throw the race baiting thing at me. I call out race baiters. I'm telling you morning, noon and night not to blame people from other parts of the world for the problems that we see in the UK day in, day out. They're not the problem. These people are as much of a victim of it as you are. They're not making it happen. It's the architects that you've got to call out. But with the BBC, the programming is there in glorious technicolor, even on the radio, for everybody to hear. Let's go to Enfield and speak to Mahalia or Mahalia. It's a bit mad, right? This is the Richie Allen Radio Show, Monday's programme. We're off to Caroline Stephens next. Can't wait to hear from her. Right, Depeche Mode on the Richie Allen Radio Show, even 27 and a half minutes past 5 it is. Live from Salford, where else? Right, this is serious. The United Kingdom will allegedly leave the European Union at 11 p.m. on January 31st. That's 11 days from now, allegedly. There is a transition period which ends on New Year's Eve this year. And that time frame between now and then has been earmarked or has been set aside to give the European Union and the UK a chance to come to an agreement on a future trading relationship. Are we going to leave the European Union at all? Why is it important now? Surely it's all been said and done. The withdrawal agreement has gotten through Parliament. It's all over. People say it's done. Is it really? What about the Lisbon Treaty? What part does that play in this? Of course, I know all about it as an Irishman who went to the polls even. We went to the polls back in 2008 even, and rejected the Lisbon Treaty. And then the European Union told the Irish government to go back and do it again. Very important treaty. Most people don't know anything about it. Let's welcome back to the programme a lady who, I'm glad she's back. She was on with us about 3 or 4 months ago. She's a teacher and a financial consultant and is a former UKIP parliamentary candidate. Now, she was also a campaign coordinator for UKIP as well. She worked for Leave.eu, and she's got a very, very interesting YouTube channel, which I like, where she talks about these matters and others. The YouTube channel is called Caroline Stephens Seeking the Truth. STEPHENS, Caroline Stephens Seeking the Truth. Caroline, welcome back to the programme. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thanks, Richie. We've had beautiful sunny weather today, as I'm sure you have, but it's been a wee bit nippy, and it's great to have me back on the show, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Not at all. I like getting smart people on the programme who do interesting things, and I like your YouTube channel and the videos you put on there. They're very good. And of course, you're talking about things, explaining these treaties, particularly Lisbon, in a way that people don't understand, not because they're stupid, but because they haven't had the time to go and have a really close look at it, and because, of course, the media doesn't talk about it at all. What about this withdrawal treaty and the notion that the UK will, before we talk about Lisbon, this idea that the UK will be leaving the European Union on the 31st and that a trade deal will be accomplished this year? Is Boris Johnson telling the truth? Are we properly leaving the European Union?
Well, on the 31st of January, the people in the UK are going to be treated to a light show in London. They are able to buy a commemorative coin to celebrate the event. I believe they were actually minted last October, and they've had to be reminted because of the delay in leaving, and I say leaving very tentatively. I don't think we're getting a level playing field after the 31st of January, but things will in general move along just as they have been doing all this time. The transition period, people probably won't see much change at all.
So ultimately what you're describing there, and I won't put words in your mouth, you won't allow me anyway, but it's this Brino notion, Brexit in name only. Is that what we're heading for?
Well, I think it's really important for people to understand what is actually leaving the EU all about. And of course, I saw an article in the Times exactly a week ago, and it was written by one of the lords in the House of Lords, Lord Panic, which is he's a lawyer. And I hope that doesn't mean to say that they were all panicking in there.
Yeah.
But yes, Lord Panic. And I did say to him, I pointed out the actual legal situation that the Lisbon Treaty should be null and void. And the fact that, what was I going to say? He's basically focused. We were in unlawfully, and, Magna Carta, Bill of Rights, Lisbon Treaty null and void due to the House of Lords Act and so on. And he bypassed my whole letter and just said he was concerned about some clause 26, which is all about setting precedents in the court system. That's his main concern, the court precedent system. Who is in charge, basically? Is it EU law that sets the precedent on the lower courts, the higher courts, and whether the Supreme Court is the Supreme Court? And that was the sum total of his response. It was literally a one-liner, see clause 26. So, I mean, since I last saw you, I've been doing more investigations on the actual powers of the House of Lords. And according to the Parliament Act of 1911, the House of Lords can't really overturn anything that the elected representatives produce, apart from, say, in areas of taxation. They maybe can delay things for a couple of years. So we don't really have any checks and balances, and we haven't had any checks and balances in Parliament for such a long time now. But what I've been focusing on since this discovery of the House of Lords has no powers, and it's just a pantomime, it's just to let the people think that they are getting democracy. But, in between's time, we've been seeing day after day after day of newspaper articles about the high-speed train, which, as you know, is well over budget. I interviewed a guy, a very, very clever engineer, and he quoted the cost per mile. It was absolutely extortionate to build HS2. And of course, day after day, Boris Johnson is saying, oh, we'll review it. We'll have a look at it. Oh, we'll revisit it. And the department will do. And it literally has been hitting the headlines in the mainstream media on a weekly basis now. And, this northern powerhouse, I mean, you're based up north.
Yeah.
I spend a lot of time being a northern girl. I have a lot of friends and family up north. And so I can see things from both sides of the equation. And, the fact that the House of Lords is now being touted as moving to York.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I mean, this fits with the Lisbon Treaty. They said in the Lisbon Treaty, one of the pointers was there was going to be a revamp of the House of Lords. Well, it's going to be moving, and the House of Commons, I believe, is still going to stay in London. And you've got these metro mayors, and I don't mean in a sort of these are the mayors that are going to be in charge of a region. So your regional mayor is Andy Burnham, isn't he, Richie?
Yeah. That's a very good point you raised there. We have kind of very, almost covertly, we're moving towards an American style of mayor, aren't we, in the regions around the UK, in terms of the powers devolved to that mayor. That's interesting. We might come back to that.
Well, actually, could I just say that?
Of course, go ahead.
They've been touting this. I mean, the in word is devolution.
Yeah.
Now, devolution, people are touting this word as if it's something really, really good. But it does mean the breakdown of England as well as the break off of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So, I mean, devolution now within England seems to be inevitable. And if people are been keeping their eyes open and their ears open, they would have seen that this has been in the mainstream media since at least 2015, when The Guardian wrote about George Osborne's Northern Powerhouse project way back in, as I say, in 2015.
Here's a question, Caroline. Sorry to interrupt you. Love having you back. Caroline Stevens is our guest. This is really good where you're moving this. You talk about devolution there. I have a theory, and my theory's usually rubbish. I'm not often I'm not often right, but I wonder about these independence movements. I say forget Northern Ireland because that's a different thing. That Irish independence struggle, that's a different thing. But look at Scotland. There is an independence movement rumbling in Wales. Then look around Europe and look at Catalonia. I wonder, those behind the European Union, those really behind it, these globalists, these financiers, who want, to concentrate power into a tiny few hands. It makes sense to me. Now, you can shoot me down if you think I'm wrong, that those who want to bring in some sort of global governance, one of the ways to do it is to break up the likes of the United Kingdom, break up Spain, break up other parts of Europe, and then get all of those new independent states to join the European Union. We've seen this in the Baltic states. Am I talking through my hat, or do I have a point?
No, you have a point. I mean, we've got a Scottish Parliament, we've got a Northern Irish Parliament.
Yeah.
And we've got a Welsh Parliament, and England's going to be divided. They always, the old adage is, united we stand, divided we fall. So whereas we've been built up to expect for Scotland to break away at some point, and that's also divided opinion again, what people have taken their eye off the ball is the fact that we've got the Hunger Games. I mean, we were shown the Hunger Games. We had the 12 regions. We had the high-speed train going from region to region. Anybody who's ever watched the Hunger Games and the sequels will know what I'm talking about. And that's just, you see the elites watching what's happening in all the 12 regions.
Hey, Caroline, is there any argument to be made for that high-speed train, or is that high-speed train plan totally unnecessary? What do you think?
There is not anything positive that I've seen about the high-speed train, but they've had the high-speed college all set up in Doncaster since 2017. Do you honestly expect, do your listeners honestly expect that, Boris Johnson said, oh yeah, I'm going to review this. They have spent so much money, our money, the taxpayers' money. Let's not forget this. And it is easy to forget because the government like to spend our money. But if it was their money, they wouldn't be spending this. But this is an EU project without any EU funding.
Without any EU funding whatsoever. Caroline Stevens is our guest, folks. Formerly Leave.eu, former campaign coordinator for UKIP. She's a teacher, financial consultant. Caroline Stevens, Seeking the Truth on YouTube. You mentioned the Hunger Games Society. Very interesting. This week we're talking about white privilege. I interviewed a gentleman last week, Caroline. He's an MBE. He advised the last 4 governments in this country on counter-terrorism and counter-extremism. Raja Mia is his name. He's based in Oldham. And he tells me that in Oldham, white working class people, this gentleman now is not white. He's obviously, he's from an Asian background. He says white working class people are treated with nothing but contempt in places like Oldham. They're the forgotten people. Their needs, their wants, their problems are completely irrelevant to the Labour Party in Oldham and in other parts of the Northwest. You talked about the Hunger Games Society. We're hearing a lot about white privilege on the radio and on the television this week. There's something terribly wrong in this country, isn't there? And speaking out about it can lead to, well, deplatforming, firing from a job, suspension. How do you see this at the moment? This whole white privilege debate.
Well, I mean, just speaking the truth, full stop, it is difficult. You mentioned the Lisbon Treaty video earlier, the one that had reached getting on for 500,000 views, and that has been removed from Facebook and it's been removed from YouTube. So I'm speaking from personal experience. When you speak the truth, you are shut down. I've been shadow banned on Facebook, and I will be shadow banned for 5 months. For what exactly? I never talk about anything about race. It's simply by sharing videos like the Lisbon Treaty. I spoke, as you know, when we last spoke, I talked to the people in Dewsbury. Dewsbury is not so dissimilar to places like Oldham, and there are racial tensions because primarily because of the grooming gang situation. You know, I was speaking to white people about the way that the police treated them. So it's like you can understand these people have they have minimum wage jobs. They see the taxis, you know, drive up on a night, young white girls getting into them. It's not, this isn't integration. This is these are two societies meeting without true, well, there's no protection for these girls. And there's no, you know, when you have low income jobs, where do these people, what are they going to achieve in life? Where can they go? So a lot of children of these days have been taken away from their parents. The parents are out working, perhaps, or maybe there's not particularly any reason to take the children away. Children in foster care disappear on a daily basis. I mean, 10,000 children apparently disappeared in the UK last year.
That's right.
10,000 children. How many schools would 10,000 children fill?
I want to, yeah. It's a dreadful situation, and increasingly as time goes on, it's becoming difficult for those people affected by it. Forget about commentators like me or researchers like yourself. Forget about our commentary. It's becoming increasingly difficult for people whom are affected by it. I mean, you mentioned there, you know, I mean, it's extraordinary to me to listen to Andrew Marr's programme yesterday on BBC One. And he had a Labour MP whose surname escapes me. Her name is Nadia. She's the youngest member of the House of Parliament, recently elected. And she's doing something which might be very nice. She's giving away a lot of her salary to deserving causes, saying she doesn't need all of it. But in one of the answers she gave to Andrew Marr said to her, he said, the government is going to make it more difficult for unskilled workers to come to the UK. What do you think of that? And this young woman, and probably most of the Labour Party, would call themselves socialists. The real answer from a real socialist would be, well, it's a good thing that we don't make it more difficult for the people here already to get work that is unskilled. We don't need any more unskilled workers. We got to be very careful. But the woke answer, which she gave, was, well, here we go again. The Conservative Party is throwing migrants under the bus and migrants are getting the brunt of everything. She ignored the question. Unskilled workers coming into the country. Do you believe Boris Johnson? This is the crux of it. When he says that he wants to limit, make it more difficult for people without a skill or a trade to come into the country and start a life here. Do you believe him?
No, I mean, I don't believe him because they have never kept their promises whilst they were in power. I mean, David Cameron set out on this target to say that he would lower immigration numbers, and that was not achievable under open door immigration. It was just it was a crazy thing to come out with, because there was no way that could ever be achieved. So I don't believe it will change dramatically under Boris Johnson's watch. And it seems to me that the immigrants, the way that things are going at the moment, our people potentially who are living in Europe, in the EU or Europe, may be returned back to Britain after the 31st of December, but it's not a two-way street. We haven't said that the people here have to go back to their country. So that's one point. the unskilled labour, they did actually, I did read the small print of this on the newspapers, and the small print of unskilled labour was, if we did not have enough people like for the building trade, we would still continue to bring those people in. That is open to huge amounts of abuse. How are you going to be able to police that? So that was the small print. The devil is always in the detail. And thirdly, the government were quite happy to to enlarge universities and bring more people in under the university status with the visas. And 80% of people, I believe, I may be wrong, but 80% rings a bell. I mean, if I'd known I was going to talk about this, I would have checked it out before I came on the show.
Listen, don't mind me. That's just me. I segue off into millions. I splinter off into different things, Caroline.
I'm a statistician,
No,
and
it's good.
I like to be accurate. But 80% of people, once they've finished their degree here, stay here. Now, so... You know, we've got a lot of people doing ologies. Remember Maureen Lipman?
I do indeed.
Got an ology.
If you've got an ology, you're all right. Yeah, that's right.
That's right. So, I mean, you know, if you want to take zoology and become a city whiz kid, I mean, the thing is, do we actually need lots more people who are just taking any old type of degree just because this is a corporatized situation? The universities are money-making corporations. So they've got, you know, your vice chancellors on £400,000
That's
a
right.
piece.
That's right.
And so it's in their best interest to keep bringing these people in. Then they're getting loans, and that's also on a corporatized system. And I know that people say, oh, we don't have to pay it back unless our earnings are, say, 21,000 or what have you. But this is going to be a millstone round your neck for decades, potentially. So we don't need necessarily. What do we need? And if we need a particular discipline, why aren't we treating our people and training them? Because we do have those people. It's like one of my neighbours works for an engineering company. Well, he says, oh, it's very difficult to recruit engineers. And he voted Remain. So I said, well, how does that work then? You're finding it difficult to recruit engineers here in the southwest. Up the road, 2 hours drive up the road, you go to Birmingham. I spoke to 400 apprentices at Land Rover, Jaguar Land Rover, just before the referendum. And I said there were thousands of people for those 400 jobs. So how is it so difficult for your company to recruit? Maybe it's the pay that you're offering. Maybe it's just a case of you want to bring in qualified people that you don't have to train from outside who come from a lower income country, and you're trying to do it on the cheap.
But you know what, Caroline? This is my theory. The European Union is largely responsible for the death of apprenticeships in this country and in the Republic of Ireland. Back in I'm 45 now, back in my day, when there was a shortage of auto mechanics, when there was a shortage of, it could be hairdressers, it could be anything. We had training centres which were known as Forras Oceana Sihir, and that means FOSS. We had national training centres, and they were a gift. They were fantastic. People who didn't do academically well in schools, not that they were sick, they were far from sick, but they just didn't get on in school. When they were 15, 16, they went to a FOSS training centre. And as I said, they learned mechanics, they learned plumbing, all these bloody things. But it was given the specifics of it, but I know that was a European Union directive to end those training centres. And I know that YTS schemes and apprenticeship schemes in this country are non-existent today. And I believe, again, you can trace that back to Brussels. Go ahead.
Well, I taught a special school for a year, and to see the children they've left really mainstream education behind. They have to do the maths, they have to do the English, but a lot of that is embedded in a trade, as you say, like motor mechanics, hairdressing, and so on, and cooking. And they see the relevance. That's what they've lacked sometimes. And it's some of these kids, they can't always sit still, and they need to be doing something with their hands, dare I say. And so they're much better in those sort of environments. But there are very few of those schools. They're very few and far between. And as you say, we do have colleges which do offer practical skills, but these apprentices, I left school at 18 and went into an office, and I actually undertook an apprenticeship. Even in an office, you could do that. You could be paid to go away and do day release once a week. So I qualified in 9 exams, including English law, and I ended up with a degree equivalent in my time, and I was paid to do it. I mean, that's got to be the best of both worlds. Working 4 days a week, studying 1 day a week, and obviously you do have homework to do, so it's not just a total breeze. But at the end of the day, you're in full-time employment. You know how the employer works. They know how you work. And it just works so much better that way. But you see, there's been a change in adult teaching and the emphasis these days. Whereas now adults seem to have like a little portfolio, and they have to take full responsibility, it seems to me, of their own training in many situations, because there is no such thing now as, there's so few jobs like the Land Rover apprentices where they're there and hopefully they'll be there maybe 5 or 10 years. Now you work in an office, you've got your little portfolio and you're ticking boxes. I've done this, I've done that, I've learnt this, and then you're going to be forced to go off to another employer. And your education, a lot of the time now, people are having to undertake their education out of their own pocket. And so it is completely different to how when we left school.
Caroline Stevens is our guest. We've got about 5-6 minutes left on this. I want to go back to where we came in, the Lisbon Treaty. When this was introduced to, when this was put before the Irish people in a referendum in 2008, it was 2008, yeah. I was based in Spain at the time, and I was contacted by a couple of different radio stations because I was very much, obviously, in the no camp. Not to ratify it, that we shouldn't ratify it. And when it was put before the Irish people that first time, there was a huge turnout. And it was a big victory for no. And I remember reading as much of it as I possibly could online at the time. And it's important for our listeners who maybe don't, these treaties are massive. And the jargon, the lingo is confusing. Again, it's not about you being stupid, but it's about whether or not you're used to reading this stuff. As far as I remember, and I haven't done any homework today, I have listened to your video. I've watched your video, which is excellent. I recommend you go to Caroline Stevens Seeking the Truth on YouTube to watch it. What I understood at the time, which was very scary about the Lisbon Treaty, and this is a big year for the Lisbon Treaty, 2020, because this year, member states, as far as I've got to say this properly, they don't lose their veto to veto any new legislation from Europe, but their ability to veto is drastically reduced. The scope of countries' ability to veto European Union law is drastically reduced. And I think this is all about the qualified majority that was introduced in the Lisbon Treaty. That's massive, that. And again, most people don't know anything about that because it isn't spoken about, on BBC, Channel 4 or ITV. Go ahead, Caroline.
My understanding of the QMV, that's already actually in place.
It's already in place.
The thing is about the 2020, and you'll get some smart Alex who say, that there's no dates mentioned. The thing is, there is nobody in the world possibly that has read the entire Lisbon Treaty, because it will say there is a book on the Lisbon Treaty, but you've got all these 3,000 pages, and what happens is you will. Every so often it will say, and see document, blah, de, blah, de, blah. So you have to go off and look for other documents that have to be read concurrently with the Lisbon Treaty. But what has been left in abeyance, we have seen many things already implemented with the Lisbon Treaty. The fact that we went straight under the EU Constitution on the 1st of December 2009 was a biggie. Nobody had a fanfare about that, understandably, but we had got all our acts in place through Parliament in time for that to happen. But we've got the House of Lords has been relatively untouched since 1999. So the final nails in the coffin are now, well, they're revamping it.
Caroline, do me a favour. Sorry,
they're going to move it.
Sorry for interrupting you. I did make a note of this when you said it at the beginning of the conversation, and I meant to come back to it. You said that the House of Lords is powerless. Help me explain that, because somebody listening to this, they might think, well, if the government, which has a significant majority now, if it introduces a law to tax, I don't know, salt or salt and pepper or, I don't know, ice cream, and it passes Parliament, it then goes to the upper house. The House of Lords retains the ability to say, no, we don't agree with that, and throw it back down to the House of Parliament. Why are you saying on Lisbon and on Europe that the House of Lords can't do anything to prevent whatever it is that Boris Johnson wants to do?
Well, the way the Parliament Act of 1911, and which was subsequently amended in 1947, reads that House of Lords has very limited powers from those dates onwards, and they still have powers in taxation to stop the House of Commons increasing tax rates at what have you, but it's only in areas of taxation. But you see, we're going to circumvent Parliament anyway, because we've got this climate change crisis. And of course, you keep seeing, I don't know about you, but have you noticed they keep going to Glasgow on a regular basis and having the Glasgow nightlife behind the presenter. Yeah. And this is where they're going to have the climate change big meet arranged by Claire Perry in, I think it's September of this year. And this will be the place where all the countries will agree for a common taxation policy.
This is really important, Caroline.
In relation to climate change.
This is really important. And this idea was mooted by Richard Haas, the chairman of the Council on Foreign Relations, which is a Rockefeller group, a round table group. And these groups like the Council on Foreign Relations, massively important, because what they dream up is enacted by their puppets in Washington and elsewhere and in London. And over the last few years, Richard Haas has been talking about climate change. And he has said, Caroline, that we can't have the old rules of sovereignty. He said, we used to think of sovereignty in the past, that one country shouldn't invade the sovereign territory of another. But he said, that's got to go out the window now, especially in this era of climate change. If one country is doing something like burning coal to fuel their energy needs, and that might be harming the rest of us, well, we've got to do something about that, he said. This is true, 2017, I refer to it all the time. And Glasgow is very significant this year. They want global governance on the issue of climate change. You are absolutely right to say that. It's scandalous. And nobody's talking about this in the mainstream media, right?
But exactly. They're not joining the dots. And have you noticed the political party system? It will become less and less significant because we are all global citizens, including the Queen. I posed the question, when we joined the EEC on the 1st of January 1973, we all became citizens of the EU. Did the Queen become a citizen of the EU? And if so, is she still a monarch?
Caroline, brilliant to have you back on the programme today. Next time you come back, we'll do more of a segment. With your permission, we'll stay on a bit longer, because there's a lot to get into there, things we could have gotten into today as well. Thanks for coming on. Your YouTube channel can be accessed by just Googling or going onto YouTube and looking for Caroline Stevens Seeking the Truth. teacher, financial advisor, former UKIP parliamentary coordinator, campaigns coordinator, I should say, and former candidate. Really interesting, Caroline, and very, very important to hear from you today. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Richie. I had so much more to say to you about, paedophilia and Peter Ball and the royal family. And can we do this next time?
I was just going to say to you, I know I know there's a lot to be said. There's a lot unsaid today. So let's schedule for you to come on for an hour and a half early in February, 10 or 15 days from now. We'll sort the day out, and I'll get you on really early, and we can go for as long as we want. How about that?
Brilliant. I've got lots to say.
No doubt, and I'm looking forward to hearing it, Caroline. Sincerely, thanks so much for coming back today. Great to have you on.
And thanks to all your listeners for tuning in.
Thank you. Caroline Stevens, live on the line from her home today on the Richie Allen Radio Show, Monday, January 20th, 2020. Right. We're going to take another tune, I think, and then we're off to Flagstaff in Arizona, where Jordan Maxwell should be waiting for us. If there are things you'd like me to put to Jordan, I know I'm going to get a raft of them. I don't mind. I'll get a lot of them. Do send them to me, and I will say it for me. I will put your questions to him. Yes, all right. Yeah, you can tell I'm doing something else at the same time. Yes, I'm not very good at disguising that. I never was. Here's the tune from the New Radicals. I didn't have a tune ready, you see. This is the New Radicals on your Richie Allen Show. The time is 2.5 minutes past 6. Monday's programme. Looking forward to Jordan. Can't wait. He'll be with me in a couple of minutes. Live from Arizona, as I said. That was the New Radicals on the Richie Allen Radio Show. The time is 5.5 minutes past the hour. Monday it is. I know I've said that already. It's Monday. I'm really happy today. I'm excited today, because I love my next guest. I love the man. Nobody was more kind to me when I started in independent radio after I left mainstream radio back in 2009. Nobody was more generous with his time and his guidance and his help and his presence than my next guest. He's a special man, and I love him very much. You can find out all you need to know about him at his website, jordanmaxwellshow.com. It's a bit modest, I think, to say that he's one of the preeminent scholars historically when it comes to the occult and the nature of reality, ancient civilizations and, humanity, where we came from. I'll say no more, just to welcome him back to the programme. Jordan Maxwell, delighted you're back on today. It's made my week. How are you?
Thank you, Richie, for allowing me to come back on the program. Always love being on the show with you.
I'll never forget.
You
back
were one of my favorite people on the air.
Thanks very much. I remember when we first did radio back in Spain. I was in Spain, and we spent hours and hours on live radio talking about these issues. You never got bored. You were so generous with your time. You took phone calls from the audience. It was great. Those were great times. I can't, even though we're speaking today, I missed those times. How are you, by the way? How are you? How are things?
Well, I'm okay, I guess. I think I'm 79 years old, and I feel like I'm 109. and of course, everything on me aches. And but that's okay. I'm still here, and I'm still doing okay. So, and I'm always happy to be on the show with you.
Well, thanks very much. It sounds like somebody knows that you're on the Richie Allen Radio Show. There, somebody knows. Somebody's listening. There's always somebody listening. Hey, before we have a chat, because we're just going to have a general chat today, there are some nice questions coming in from our lovely listeners. But I wanted to ask you about, you're back on the road because you're at a UFO mega conference on Wednesday, February 19th this year, so it's only a few weeks away. That's, you're giving a presentation there for a couple of hours. That's the UFO mega conference. You can find out more about this and tickets at jordanmaxwellshow.com. Tell me about the UFO mega conference. I know.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Well, this is Bob Brown. The guy's name is Bob Brown, who's putting this show on. He is a premier presenter. All of his conferences are major, big conferences. He only does them once in a while, but when he does a conference, it's very, very big. And I've spoken at his conferences almost every time. He always has me as a speaker, and he's invited me to be at this conference that's going to happen next month on the 15th. It's from the 15th to the 22nd of February. And if you go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show, you will see an advertisement for it. Click on it and read all about it. It will tell you where it's going to be, when, what time. It's going to be a 7-day event, 7-day conference on UFOs, aliens, conspiracies in government, all the most incredibly interesting subjects that's going to, and we're going to have some of the best speakers ever. The best of the best are going to be there speaking from all over the world. It's going to be a week-long event, and they've asked me to be one of the keynote speakers, which I am told I'm going to be given a Lifetime Achievement Award. And they're kind of building the conference around me, which I think is very, very generous of Bob Brown doing that.
No, it's not generous. It's very sensible. You've been researching this for 50, 60 years, dare I say. It's only right and proper, I think.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a link out too where people can find out more about it. So that you're going to be giving talks and you'll be taking part in panel discussions. That's a nice way to start, because we haven't done this for such a long time.
Yeah, I know. I haven't done anything publicly in such a long time. I'm kind of concerned about that, because I haven't been before an audience in many, many years. And I used to be so busy around the clock, traveling around the world, speaking to audiences.
Yeah.
But I haven't done that in so long that I'm kind of concerned about it, because I think I know how to do that still. And I've got an over 2-hour presentation I want to do on the secret societies that run the world.
Yeah.
That's going to be my lecture title, The Secret Societies of the Illuminati. Who are they, and what are they doing, and how did they do it, and how do they do it? And it's going to be an extraordinary thing I've been working on for some 50 years. And this one subject I'm going to be doing is something I've been talking about almost all of my life. And so I'm now going to be able to do a 2-hour slide presentation. I think you call it, what do we call that? Keynote.
Keynote, you're the keynote speaker, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a keynote presentation.
I wish I could be there, my friend. I hope I'm sure they will video it, and I'm sure they will release the video. We might talk a little bit about secret societies in a moment. Jordan Maxwell is our guest. The website is jordanmaxwellshow.com. I'm going to say something to you that I said to a great friend of mine, who's an actress, a very successful actress. You just said to me that I've not done a speech in front of an audience for a long time. Keep this in mind, because it is true. Form is temporary. Class is permanent. And your class, my friend, you'll have no problems standing up there. You could speak for 2 days without stopping. You could filibuster. You could filibuster if you needed to be. If you need to do that for 2 days. No, I'd love to be there. It sounds absolutely fascinating.
Well, I appreciate it, and I thank you for it. The lecture I'm going to deliver there, I'm going to also put out on the web, maybe for free, maybe on my website, that you can download and stream it and watch it. I'm going to put what I'm going to do in Laughlin, I'm going to put out on the web for people to see, because I think it's so important. The whole world needs to see what I'm going to talk about, because so many people have no idea in the world of the implications of the subject I'm talking about. So I'm going to put it out there, and you'll be able to see it very soon. We'll send you an email that you can download it and watch it.
Is the timing... You said you're 79, and I wouldn't, I wouldn't want to be patronising you. It's a great age, and, plenty years left, hopefully, in you. But is this a great time to be talking about secret societies? Because it seems that, because of recent events, I definitely feel that people are more ready than they've ever been to entertain something new, to listen to things they wouldn't have previously listened to. And I think you're in the right place. Do you feel that as well?
Well, I feel that there is something to what you're saying, the fact that there seems to be a general awakening around the world to something which they already felt that they already knew. People all have always known there's something wrong with the world we live in. There's too much injustice not to be by chance. And so we know that there's something wrong with the world we live in. We feel it. Everybody knows it, but nobody is seeing anything about it. And nobody is confronting the powers that be to expose them. And what I have learned over the years is that there is something that is very important that I have learned about what I do. You can be absolutely correct in what you're saying. You can be right on target, exactly exposing the Illuminati conspiracy around the world of the criminals who are causing the world to self-destruct. You can be absolutely correct when you confront the powers that be. But the problem is, at the end of the day, at the end of your life, you will discover that you were right and you were correct, and the powers that be are still the powers that be. They've always been here, they're going to be here, and there's nothing you're going to do to change anything. Why? Because the people don't want the change. People are not interested in the change of the tyranny. They live under the tyranny. They live under it. They're used to it, and they will fight you all the way to keep the tyranny. They don't want to change anything. The people of the world love to crawl on their knees to the royalty. They love that. The people love to be talked down to and be led by what they consider to be the masters of this world. And so that's why I've said so many times, what is going on with the human race? We are promoting criminality. We are electing the biggest criminals out there. We know they're criminals. We know they're politicians who have been bought and sold by by organized crime. We know that they're no good. They're worthless. We know that, but we still love to we still love to elect them, and we love to go out to the big speeches what they're giving. We go out, we want to be a part of everything that they're doing, knowing that they're criminals. We know that the criminal empire is running the world. We know that, but we still are fascinated to go out and watch the Queen Mum ride around in the gold chariot, flipping her cigarette ashes on the children.
And giving us the bird. Let me ask you this. Sorry for interrupting you. I won't be interrupting you much. And they're giving us the finger. But there are lots of us who are aware of it and are doing as much as we can in our own communities to try and make things better. Are you saying that A, there isn't enough of us, or B, there never will be enough of us? Is that what you're saying? Because there are plenty of us who really get it and would do anything to change it and would risk our own situations, our own status to change it. But I know you're aware of that. I think you're saying there's just not enough of us. Is that right?
I think probably that's about the right. That's about what I meant, is that there's not enough good people that care enough to actually do something to support the opposition to this kind of tyranny. We all know that it's a tyranny. We all know from history what the powers that be have always treated the people, the little people under them. They've always treated them as slaves and looked down on them. And according to the British law that says that if you own a piece of land, you are a landlord. And as a landlord, you're lord of the land that you own, which means that any life on the land that you own that life. So if there are dogs on your property, you own those dogs. If there are children on that property you own, then you own the children. You own the families, the humans, you own the cattle, you own anything that's alive that's on your land. You are a landlord. And as a landlord, you own the very life of the lives on your property. And so that's why we people of today, are being treated like animals by government, because their view of us is that we are animals. We are not man or woman. There's a very big story here that most people do not know about the fact that we are not considered by law a man or a woman. Because when you are born, you are on your birth certificate, it will say if you are male or female. But there is a magazine that the British government puts out and the United States government publishes. And it's called the Styles Magazine. The Styles Magazine, if you go on the web, you can even order it and buy it from the U.S. government. It's called the Chicago Styles Magazine. And what that is, it's a magazine published by the government that tells you what the words that the government uses, what they mean by those words. So this is something that if you're going to be a barrister or a lawyer or an attorney, you need to get the Styles Magazine and read it well. Because when you go into court, whatever is said in court, you need to know what the Styles Magazine have said about that word. Because the way the court looks at a particular word is not the way you would look at it. So when you use a certain word that you would normally use on the street, but if you go into a courtroom and use those same words, you'll end up in jail because you said something you didn't understand what you said. Because you need to know that the court views the words that we use on the street as totally unimportant. What you need to know is how does the court interpret certain words. And so and the Styles Magazine would tell you that when you are born, on your birth certificate and on your identification, all your life, it will be a male or female. But the Styles Magazine says male or female designation is for an animal only. If you were born a male, you are actually a masculine child. If you're born female, you are a feminine child. Masculine and feminine are words which are given to man and woman. Masculine, feminine, man and woman. But if you're born a man, they call you a kid. There's the children of Israel, and then there's us, the rest of the people of the world. We have kids. We don't have children. And they're not masculine or feminine. They are male and female, because the Styles magazine says male and female is for animals only. So that tells you what your government is thinking of you if your identification has a male or female. It doesn't have masculine and feminine, because you're not considered by government to be a man or a woman. You're considered to be an animal. And that's why they can order you around and throw you into prison and do anything they want with you.
They see us, Jordan.
Vaccinate you.
Vaccinate you. They see us as beasts of burden. And
that's exactly correct.
So
they
as
see
we
you as a beast of burden.
Jesus, this is amazing. So as we are useful to them and help them with their productivity,
of course
we've got some use. But as we get older, and we've seen in this country, senior citizens have never been treated as badly as they are being treated now in this country, the UK. They're being treated like useless eaters. They're being blamed for everything. They're blaming old people for the problems that young people have. They're trying to take away the benefits that older people paid for when they paid their taxes. They're trying to make it more difficult for them to retire in comfort. This makes a lot of sense now, what you're saying.
And this is called collectivism. And what we're looking at, I've been talking about for some 60 years.
Yeah.
What we're looking at is in-your-face communism. It's called collectivism or communism, where we are all held as property in common. That's why we are there's even in England used to be, I don't know if it still is in England, but there used to be a part of government called the House of Commons. And if you're not royalty, you're a commoner. And the royalty wants nothing to do with the common people, the commoner. Because you're of the commoners, that means that you are one of the members of the Communist Party. You are a commoner. You're just a common, worthless animal, a beast of burden, and you're not like the royalty who ride around in gold chariots. And so therefore you're just a commoner, which gives us the word communism. And this is the way the people of Europe are viewed by the royalty, is that you're all a bunch of common workers. Communism is a collectivist idea about how to control the herd of cattle. There's nothing in particular about any particular cow or any particular bull or cow. They're just animals.
They're just
Put
animals.
them in a common herd.
Can I ask you a quick question on that? Jordan Maxwell is on the radio show today. What a treat this is to have Jordan back. JordanMaxwellShow.com is the website. You'll find links there to Jordan's forthcoming appearance at that great UFO conference. It's all there on JordanMaxwellShow.com. This is really important now. I think it is. You have just said there, and I'm mesmerized by this. So they see us as animals, not as people. So that's right. Here's my stupid question, and feel free to smack me and say that's a stupid question. I don't mind. Is it? But no, seriously, is it because these royal families of Europe? Is it because they are different? Because they're not human? I don't want to sensationalize this. I don't want to sound stupid. I don't want to embarrass you. Is it because they're genetically different to us?
I think that is exactly why. I think that they know what we don't know. They know that they are not actually human. And there was on the Tonight Show with Jay Leno a couple of years ago, there was a television show called, what was it? It was the what was the name of the TV show that was interviewing Prince Charles? It was 60 Minutes.
60 Minutes, that's the one, yeah.
Yeah, and Prince Charles was on 60 Minutes being interviewed. And the guy from 60 Minutes asked Prince Charles a question that he didn't like. He was not happy with being asked this particular question. And when this interviewer asked Prince Charles the question he didn't want to hear, Prince Charles looked at him and squinted his eyes and hissed like a snake. He kept hissing at this interviewer.
Is that right?
Like a snake. And I was shocked, and it was so incredible that Jay Leno had that piece put on his show one night. He was talking about reptile aliens, and he said, watch this video of Prince Charles, and you tell me what's going on. And he showed and it was a piece from 60 Minutes interview where the interviewer asked Prince Charles something he didn't want to be asked. And instead of answering him, he turned and looked at the interviewer and squinched his eyes down, showing he was very unhappy with being asked this question. And he started hissing loud like a snake. He hissed and hissed at this interviewer. And that was pretty incredible. People in the audience were knocked out. They couldn't believe it, that here is Prince Charles, the epitome of royalty.
Yeah, the heir to the throne.
Like a snake.
Hey, we've got to dig that clip out. I'm going to go look for it later on after the program.
I've got it. I saved it. I got it, and I saved it, and I can send it to you.
Jordan, send it to me. Yeah.
And I would love for you to watch it, and you tell me what's going on.
Do you know what's interesting about that?
Prince Charles hissing like a snake.
I'll definitely watch it. Your old friend and my old friend David Icke, many years ago, was on a UK television program, and he was in the green room, and the former Prime Minister of the UK, Edward Heath, who was a Satanist and a child murderer, this is true. Edward Heath was a child abuser, and children were murdered when he had finished abusing them. And David met Edward Heath for a brief moment. I'm sure you know this story. And David believes that Edward Heath shape-shifted. Something happened to Heath's eyes when David looked at him that was extraordinary and that was otherworldly. And whatever people might think about David's research and his work, I can tell you that David Icke is not a liar. If David says he saw it, or at least he believes he saw it. And he felt that Heath definitely came across, I don't know, kind of reptilian. Isn't that very interesting?
I think so, because that's what Prince Charles was hissing like a snake. He went out of his way to be very, very obvious of hissing. And he kept hissing at this interviewer on 60 Minutes. And it was an extraordinary experience of people watching with Prince Charles hissing like a snake. And so that's why I think, and I have always believed, and I've said this publicly at lectures, I was on the stage with David when he came to America. I got him to speak at a conference, and I was on the same conference, and I was there too. And I said on the stage, it was just David and I sitting together on the stage, and I said, I am totally convinced for myself, according to my own knowledge, I am totally convinced that the world is being run by reptile aliens. I totally believe that. And then I said, I believe that not because David Icke said so, it's because that's what I believed before I ever met David Icke. And I have a reason for believing that. And I've been doing this kind of research all my life, and that's what I believe, because I've seen it. I've seen and heard too much that I now know there's something going on the earth that has to do with extraterrestrial life forms who are here, but they're not exactly human.
Yeah, you said to me, I must mention this, you did a program with me 3.5 years ago, and I labelled the programme, Jordan Maxwell talks about blood sacrifices to the gods. Now, I've been doing commercial radio and dabbled in national radio and television for years and years and years and years. I've never been so astonished by a show as that show that we did. Because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the massive wars of aggression that we see in the world at the moment, Syria, we saw Libya, of course, Iraq, we see the attempt now to start a war with Iran. Millions and millions of people are slaughtered in the most disgusting, violent way. And you said to me, now correct me if I'm wrong, something along the lines of, these entities, these so-called leaders, these so-called elites, Illuminati, starting these wars, population reduction is definitely something to do with it. But you said they're also making sacrifices for their gods. Was that right?
That's
Did I get
exactly
that
right?
Yeah.
And their money, and the reason why they're making these sacrifices of killing people is because I have heard from researchers who are extraordinarily well known and people who have done some magnificent work on secret societies. And I have talked with them, and they have explained to me that you must have bloodshed in your country. You must have people dying so that your money will be valuable. Your money is based, the value of your money is based on how many people have died in your country. That's what determines how important your particular money is. Your money is based on how much blood has been spent to produce that money, and that's what tells the world how important your money is. It's based on how many people have died in your country, and so it's based on a blood sacrifice. And if you haven't sacrificed enough people, then your money is not going to be really worth very much on the world market. So that's why, and I believe that's why we in America are the leaders. England and America are the leaders in world catastrophe, world wars. Why? Because our money is so powerful. That's why the money is so powerful. If you understood the occult or hidden significance of bloodshed in relation to commerce and business, there's an actual hidden technology that's based on how much blood your country has shed as to how important your money on the world scale is. Most people have never heard of such a thing, that your money is based on how much blood has been spent. But I have heard, and I've heard it explained in such a way, very difficult to follow, but it makes sense. And so that's why I'm saying that the people who are leading us today in the Western world are not human. They know that the power that they have over us is based on how many people die in the process.
Is that why we talk about, is that where the term blood money came from?
I think that's probably it. That's probably it. Blood money. Blood money implies that you got it because you shed blood. You robbed someone, you killed them and took their money, and so therefore it's blood money. And I'm sure that there is something to that idea.
Let me ask you this, Jordan. JordanMaxwellShow.com. Jordan is with us. You're going to stay with me for another half an hour, are you? Are you okay to do that? Is that okay, or have you got an appointment?
Oh, absolutely.
Are you?
Absolutely.
Brilliant, yeah, because I know you've got things on, and I know, like us all, you work hard and you do get a bit fatigued, like us all. I'm only 45 and I'm shattered, tired most of the time, so anytime you want to call a halt to it, you say, Richie, I've had enough for today, and we'll do that. I love Jordan. There's no big secret. There's no point in me pretending to be objective. I've got a lot of sympathy, a lot of empathy with what he's saying. What Jordan is saying now, I previously thought was ridiculous, ludicrous, foolish, and fanciful. Many years ago, I would have thought that I knew everything. until some strange things began to happen in my own life, and I began to wonder. This is incredible. So I don't want to summarize this because I wouldn't dare do that. Is there these beings, are they extraterrestrial or are they interdimensional or are they both?
That is a very, very valid question. I am not sure if they're interdimensional. That I am sure of, that they have that quality, that they can move from one dimension to another. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But whether they are from some other galaxy, from some other planet, from some other world, and have come here, or were they already here millions of years ago and living under the earth and right with us, right on this planet, that there are so many things going on that we don't have any answer to, and the only way we can figure it out is if there's some kind of a super or a preternatural, not supernatural, but preternatural existence of life on this earth. Preternatural means not of this world. Not supernatural, but preternatural, because supernatural means it's natural, but it's really natural. It's supernatural.
Yeah.
But what I'm talking about is something called preternatural. Preternatural means not of this world. Something is not human. It has nothing to do with the world you live in. It's called preternatural. And I believe that the people who are in power today over the human race are preternatural creatures. They're not human. They look human.
But they're not.
But they're not human.
Here's a question for you. Again, sorry for interrupting. You're very patient with me. The reason I interrupt is because there's hundreds of questions coming in, and I'm trying to get one or two. No, there are, because it's you. Because it's you. We love you, and you've not been on for ages. Is it possible? Again, this might sound like a stupid, childish question, but I think it's important. I'll tell you why. Because Ouija boards have become very popular again, and children are using them. Now, they are. I'm not making this up. I'm not sensationalizing this. This is very worrying. Can some of these negative, non-human entities either hear visibly or maybe not hear visibly? Can they be reached with these contraptions like Ouija boards? And if so, are they dangerous things?
I would say that the most dangerous thing that you could do in your life to put yourself in unbelievable trouble is to mess with an Ouija board. That is the one place I am totally, in fact, frightened to even contemplate. Because what you're doing when you operate on a Ouija board, what you are actually, in fact, doing is you are communicating with the other world that's out there. And there is a law in the occult world that says that the demonic, depraved demons and devils that are out there cannot come into your life without you asking them in. But if you personally ask that the spirits and the demons or whatever they are, these interdimensional beings, if you personally ask them to come into your life, you go out and look for them and ask them to come in, then they can, according to the way the occult world works, then they can come into your life. Why? Because you ask them. And when you ask them, they can come in. But God help you when they do come in, because they're coming in with powers that you don't know anything about. You have no idea in the world who you're talking to. You are talking to a spiritual force, a spiritual intelligence that's far, far superior to you in every way, especially with evil and evil intent. That's why the Bible calls them demons and devils, because they are not human and they're not like you.
And do you know what,
they
Jordan?
They don't look upon life the way you do.
Do you know what? Because on the face of it, it's a board with numbers and letters and a pointer. But there's some vibrational thing going on with it, isn't there? It's because people would
there's
say,
no doubt about it.
And it's the symbols. Maybe the symbols that are common to all Ouija boards are maybe part of what makes it possible to make that communication with something in another dimension, or something demonic. That's very interesting because, and I'm not making this up, I was in a couple of big bookstores in Manchester this Christmas, and I was looking for a book for myself, I was looking for a book for my better half, something for herself, and they're back in the shops. And that's no coincidence. Somebody is doing that. I mean, why make these things again and put them in shops? I just find it strange.
Yeah, well...
Why give it to a child?
It's because that dark force in the other world, the one that Christians refer to as the demonic world, the depravity of demons and devils, there is something to that idea that there are those kind of presence in the spirit world that are very extremely evil. And when you have people who have been found guilty in court of mass murder, mass raping and killing, and they tell you that they were told to do that. Somebody told them to go and kidnap this child and kill them and murder them, and they were told to do that, and they were merely following orders. Well, somebody is communicating with these murderers. Somebody is leading you to do this. And it's basically because the scripture says and explains that there is such a thing as a demonic spiritual realm. Something it's an interconnecting between we humans and our brain and our minds and a spirit world that is all around us. And that spirit world is interdimensional, and it can control you if you give yourself over to it. If you give yourself over to your family, a woman can control you. Men can control you if you're a woman. Your family has certain controls over you. They're just there. I mean, they're not forcing you to do anything, but they do have some sort of an influence on you. Well, what about the spirit world? The spirit world also has an influence on you, but a far more powerful influence than you know. And therefore, if you go out and you purposely ask the spirit world to come into your life and come to see you and come and so you can see them, you're going to wish to hell you'd have never come up with some stupid question like that. Because if they come in, the fact is that they have come in and they're not going to leave. They're going to make you wish you were dead.
They're going to make you wish you were dead. It's funny. I befriended a priest in New York, and he's been on television and radio with me several times. I must get him back on the program. He is the Vatican's only licensed exorcist in the United States, the only one. And his name is Father Vince Lampert. And he's lovely. He's a lovely man, Vince. A real gentleman. And I talked about this subject with him previously, Jordan. And he's really candid. He's a lovely man. He talks about exorcisms and what happens. And like I said, he's the only Vatican licensed exorcist in America. And when I first interviewed him, I was very skeptical. And I gave him a bit of a chasing. I said, I don't believe this. Well, as an interviewer, I said, maybe these people are mentally disturbed. But he convinced me that demonic possession was real. And he said to me, I'll never forget it, he said, Richie, don't think this is just Catholic Church doctrine. Believe me as a human being, he said, Ouija boards are deadly. They're deadly.
They are deadly.
Stay away from them.
They are profoundly deadly because you don't know who you're talking to. If you go out from your home and you put a sign in your front yard, a big sign so everybody can see it, saying anybody who wants to come in, come please and visit me. Come in, it's the door's unlocked, come in and visit me. Anybody who wants to come in, I'm here, and I will feed you, and I will entertain you. So if you're out there and you want to come in, you have no place to go, come see me. And you put that sign in your front yard, well, just remember, you're opening yourself up to people that you don't know, and you have no idea who they really are, and you are out there openly asking them to come into your life. Well, if they do, you never know. You may be inviting a murderer into your home.
You could
be. You may be inviting a monstrous, evil man into your home.
A predator.
And once he comes in, you are the one that asked him to. You're the one that invited him to come in. And now you're going to have to deal with him. And if he is far, far wiser and stronger and more fierce than you are, he will take over your life. He'll take over your home. He'll take over your life. And you will be the one who asked for it. You asked for it. You went out and asked for anyone to come to see you. And boy, you're looking for trouble when you do that. You don't go out and tell the public, come into my house and I come to see me, and I will feed you and I'll take care of you. And anytime you want, just drop in to see me. Well, they may come in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're not expecting what they're bringing with them.
And they can bring serious physical problems to people, physical illnesses and
God, yes.
Dreadful.
Oh, heavens, yes.
Let me read a couple of comments. Jordan Maxwell is back on the Richie Allen Radio Show today, Monday, January 20th, 2020. Lovely to have Jordan on. Somebody asked me about the significance of 2020. We might get into that a little bit later on. We'll probably stick around for another 20, 25 minutes with your blessing, Jordan, and then we'll let you go today. I just want to read
I would love to.
Well, thanks for doing that. We'll go for another, say, 25 minutes. Let me read 2 or 3 quick comments, and then I want to ask you about dimensions. Some CERN. Now, you know about CERN in Switzerland. They're colliding these particles together at the speed of light to try and create the conditions of the Big Bang, but maybe they're doing something different. There is a question on that. We'll come back to it in a second. Susan tweets, all the Illuminati is about doorways. From the Eye of Horus to Ouija boards. Susan says, leave well alone or no corruption. It's all about intent. You have viewers, but what you're communicating but you are communicating with theirs as well, and you don't know what it is. From tarot cards to Reiki, I don't think any of it is any good, says Susan. Let me just quickly read another couple before you come back in. Faisal says he's not frightened of Ouija boards, but against them on principle. I believe our legacy and duty as humans is order, and Ouija boards are a symbol of chaos. Not good or bad, just chaotic and superstitious, he says. Frances has used them. She says, I have some hair-raising experiences of Ouija boards. Some good, some very bad. I agree that the spirit world is all around us at all times. My husband influences me very clearly since he died in 2013. My son asked him to haunt us, and he does. Bless him. I'm not joking, says Francis there. So these dimensions, Jordan, these dimensions, I wonder when the government tells us we're trying to create the conditions at the beginning of the universe, the Big Bang, so we are colliding particles together at the speed of light. Maybe they're not doing that. Maybe they're not doing that. Maybe they're trying to open portals and dimensions to let something or some things from other dimensions come here, or to allow us to go there. What do you think of all of that research?
I think that's exactly what's happening, is that they are purposely, according to their best knowledge that the scientists have been able to come up with, at the very bottom of the ladder, the very bottom of knowledge that we have as humans, we know that there are very powerful spiritual forces out there, and they want to come in. And if you do something to allow them to come in, they may help you to become a very powerful man, and you can become a very powerful politician or whatever, because you helped them to come in. And they came in and are wanting to control the human race through you. You, the one that invited them in, and they will come in and they will act on civilization through you. And you'll become prime minister, you'll become the president, you'll become the big head of the government, and everyone will think how important you are, never realizing that you have been put into a position of power by other world entities, creatures who have come here from other worlds, and they are spirits. You cannot physically hurt them or see them, but they are here and they are highly intelligent. And so this is what's going on today. We're seeing it happening all around us. And when you see Prince Charles hissing very loud with a very dark look on his face when he's talking to the guy who's interviewing him, he turns and looks at him very directly and squints his eyes and hisses loud like a snake. That blew my mind. That really woke me up. I thought, wow, one of the princes and one of the royalty of England is hissing like a snake on national television. And if you go on the web, to YouTube and type in hissing, people hissing, just put in the word hissing or hissing, shows, you will see a lot of different radio and television shows and movies and television shows. Somebody has collected and put them all together into a montage, and you will see different television announcers and people in the public eye hissing when they get angry.
When they get angry,
they start hissing.
Well,
it's
you know what?
On YouTube.
Well, you know what? I've just had, earlier on, somebody tweeted the Prince Charles one to me. This isn't television, alas. If it were, we could play it. But it's there. I've retweeted it. And from what I understand, my listeners, Jordan Maxwell has never told me a lie in all the years I know him. Listeners are coming back to tell me that, yes, it very much looks like his response is to hiss loudly at the presenter. Absolutely fascinating, that. I mean, it really is. I mean, you're right to say that. Jordan Maxwell's show.com is Jordan's website. What people want to know is, it's hard really for me to ask this, again, because it's general, and again, it might sound a bit trite, and I don't want to sound trite, but everything has an opposite. Everything has a mirror.
Of course.
So there are these entities that are responsible for the chaos that we experience as daily life. These entities, they're negative, they're demonic, they're satanic. Are there other entities that would be benevolent, that would be there in competition with these? For every good there's bad, for every bad there's good, for evil there's love and compassion. Is there something non-human that is looking out for us? Do you believe that?
Well, that's a very good question, and my answer would be that if there are entities which are good and helpful and want to protect us, they obviously do not have the same power as the evil ones do. They do not possess the same power. So I don't buy into the fact that the religion teaches that the good angels are far, far more powerful than the evil one, and the good angels are always superior. I don't believe that for a moment. I think that the dark forces of this universe are far more powerful than the good ones. And I think that our life that we live every day proves that, because the people are suffering from all kinds of horrible demonic stuff going on around the world, but there doesn't seem to be any very good angels there to help us, to protect us. We're just children. We're just children. I don't care what age. If you're the top scientist on the earth, you're just a human, and you are not considered to be a man or a woman. Only royalty are men and women, not the common people.
Here's a question for you, my friend. Boy, I love having you on, you know that. I'm like a big child. I'm supposed to be objective here. I'm supposed to be criticising you. I'm supposed to be disagreeing with you. But I love you, so I'm not going to do that. Let me ask you this. There has been mayhem in the British royal family. The young Prince Harry, the youngest son of Princess Diana, he married an American actress. She might be Canadian, I can't remember. He is walking away from that family. Now, I know that you know his mother was ritualistically murdered in Paris in 1997. Do you think this young man is walking away? Because the manner in which he's walking away is very unusual. It hasn't happened till since Edward VII abdicated, maybe, even though Harry isn't a king. He's walking away, and he can't wait to get as far away from that family as possible. I wonder, Jordan, what does he know? What does he feel?
Yeah. What has he seen that you haven't?
Yeah.
What has he experienced at middle of the night that you haven't? Because there must be a reason why somebody in his position is doing what he's doing. He's probably frightened and wants to get out from under this mess of this demonic depravity that's going on that is not of this world. I mean, I've had way too many experiences in my own personal life that tells me that there are evil spirits here on the earth. And this is the basis for all the world religions, all the holy writings of the Buddhists, the Hindus, the Islamic, the Christians, the Jewish, all the ancient writings and the religious writings from Central and South America, the Aztecs, the Mayas, the Incas, the Toltec people, all of the ancient writings of the world all talk about the demons and the devils from spirits who have come here and are causing chaos and tragedies. For we humans, we are like a kindergarten of children with bloodletting criminals running the school. The people who are running the world today are bloodletting criminals, and they are playing with us. They rape some of us, they kill some of us, they experiment on some of us. We are like animals to the people who run this planet. And that's why I don't believe there will come a time when people will be able to be free ever again. I don't think that there's any such an idea that would ever work to free the human race.
Let me ask you about that.
Freedom. I don't believe that.
You don't believe that? Let me ask you about that, because nobody knows more about Hollywood than you. In terms of nobody that I've ever spoken to. You and I had great chats years ago about Hollywood. How much of a part does films, movies, television shows, how big a part do they play collectively in keeping people imprisoned in their minds? I'm guessing it's a big part of it.
Well, keep in mind, most people don't think about this. I've thought about it often because I was in the middle of Hollywood. But in Hollywood, what you have are people who write stories. They scribble on paper and write a story, and it's called scripture, because the scribes are scribbling a story. And they scribble it on paper, and then they get it protected, so it's their work. And so now they have written a story that they want you to understand and live by. Now they take that story and they take it to a production company, and if the production company likes it, if it's bad enough and they like it, and it's scary enough, and it's legitimately evil enough, then the motion picture production houses, the big studios will buy it. Now somebody has bought a script. Now they will go out and get an actors. They need actors and actresses to act out the parts. Now, keeping in mind that the actors and the actresses do not necessarily represent the kind of character they're going to be acting like. They're actors. They're being paid to act a certain way. They're being paid and employed to act out a part. And once a year they get awards as who the best actors were. It's called the Academy Awards. Who are the best actors in town? And so they get awards for being an actor. So you've got script writers who write the script. You have actors who will act out the script. You have producers who are producing the script and bring in the money to produce the script. You have directors who are delighted to exactly, correctly direct you to say things the way you're supposed to say it. I know because I've been in movies before, and I've had my run-ins with directors who tell me, say this way. And I said, I don't want to say it that way. It doesn't make any sense. And they tell me, look, I run this show. I'm telling you, I'm not asking you to do it. I'm telling you to do it. We're paying you to do it. And so I know that the whole motion picture industry is to create a story, get the actors, make sure they're being correctly directed, and now they put out a story for the world to go and pay money to go and watch the story that somebody wrote because they want you to buy into that story. And so they get the best actors and the best actresses, and the actors and actresses get awards at the end of the year. Who was the best and most believable actor? Well, the best and the most believable actor are the politicians. They're always acting out, and they're always saying something or doing something that look like they care about you, when in point of fact they couldn't care less. Yeah. You know, even in the state in which I live in Arizona, in America, I live in Arizona, and I have found out that if you pick up Native American, we have a lot of Native Americans here in Arizona, American Indian, and they have reservations here, big ones, big reservations, and I live right next to one. But I have found out in law in Arizona, if you pick up someone, a Native American, and they're thumbing a ride, and you pick them up, if they hold you up with a gun and they take your vehicle and kick you out, you can't do anything to them if you find out who they are. Wow. You cannot touch them. Why? Because you picked them up. You're the one that brought them into your car, and so therefore the government will do nothing about it. If they hold you up and take your car and steal your money, you can't do anything about it because you're the one that stopped to pick them up.
Is that an Arizona state law or is it a national law?
I think I don't know if it's true in every state, but I know it's here in Arizona. And also I was told by the police that if you put a welcome mat in front of your front door, if you put a welcome mat in front of your front door and somebody comes in at 2:00 in the morning and breaks into your house, and if they come through the front door and they pick the lock and they come through, you can't do anything about it. You cannot touch the people who come into your home. You cannot do anything. If you strike out with a gun to harm them, you could go to prison, you could go to jail, because you're the one that advertised that your front door was open. Greetings, you have a welcome mat, and you're welcoming people in. And by law in Arizona, if anyone comes into your house at 2 in the morning, you're the one that put the advertisement out. It said that you were welcome, come in. And so if they come in,
That's
you can't do anything about it because you're the one that advertised to welcome them to come in.
I've never heard of anything like that in my entire life. So this is absolutely, you've blown my mind here. I'm shocked. So you're saying that Dave said to you that by putting the welcome mat down, you are somehow legally saying that your house is open. It's open.
That's right. That's right. Come on in. Anybody wants to come in, you're welcome. You're welcome to come in. Well, and the way it reads in law in Arizona, if you put a welcome mat in front of your door and somebody comes in one day, they just walk into your house and you have the door unlocked, they walk in, you can't do anything about it because you're the one that put a welcome mat. You welcome anybody to come into your house, and then somebody decided to come into your house. What are you going to do? You're gonna call the police? You can't call anybody. You're the one that welcomed them in. But you should think about it.
But if they're inside the house and they commit a crime against you, then they have committed a crime. So if somebody walks into a house because there's a welcome mat out there, and they have a drink or they take some food or whatever, you might even say that's a crime because they haven't gotten permission. But if they were to assault the homeowner, surely they would be liable to be arrested then. I would have thought.
I don't know. I've just heard. I mean, I didn't go into the conversation that deeply, but that's what I was told by officers in the law. They were saying if you put a welcome mat and somebody comes into your house, don't even bother to call the police because you're the one that welcomed them in. You're the one that advertised it. Come on in. You're welcome to come in. Well, if they come in and they decide to do something, there's nothing you're going to do about it. You're the one that invited them in.
Do you know what makes me... A part of me thinks... Now, listen, we've known each other for years, so we can be frank, we can be candid with one another. A part of me thinks, on the one hand, that you might have misunderstood what you were told. But, to be fair, I think maybe you did. But then I think maybe you didn't. Because you live in the country of Trayvon Martin. You live in the country where a young boy was murdered in Florida because a man said that he believed that the young boy was going to assault him. It's called... Is it eminent or imminent danger? What's the law? You've got a law there. I could be on the street, Jordan, in the US, and I could be armed legally, and you and I have never met, and you walk towards me, and I think you're walking funny, and I think you're going to do some harm to me. Effectively, in Florida, I can shoot you and base my defense on my belief that you were going to do something to me.
You're right.
Jesus,
you're right.
Yeah. It's a crazy.
That's why I've said that so many times. Laws are really strange. I mean, here in America, the laws are so far removed from anything intelligent that this is why in America we have something called a criminal justice system.
Yeah.
Why is it called a criminal justice
because
system?
It's criminal.
Yeah, it's because the justice system is being administered by the criminals, and the whole justice system is set up to protect the criminal. Period. That's the way it works in America. If you come to America, don't expect that anything happens that there's going to be any justice. There is not going to be any justice. There's no justice. The judges will tell you that in America there's no justice. There's just us.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah, so that's why I'm telling people if you come to America, you better be careful because here there is no justice. If you get raped or murdered or whatever happens to you, you're the one that asked for it. We didn't ask you to come here. So you should have stayed home.
Yeah.
And don't come to America. You're looking for trouble. You come here to this land, this godforsaken country of America is absolutely incredibly run by criminals. Criminals are everywhere you look. They will steal from you, lie to you, trick you, and deceive you. And if that's not good enough, they'll kill you. And there's nothing you can do about it in America because we have a criminal justice system. And I know because I have gone through it. I know all about it. I've had stuff happen to me that you would not believe if I explained it to you. You would not believe it.
Well, I would believe it. I would believe that you believed it. That's all that matters to me. I've been around people enough of my life to know when people are deceiving me. I know that whatever you've experienced, whatever you think happened to you, you believe it. I believe it, but I believe that you believe it. That's all that matters to me. And that's in no way to take away from anything you've ever said to me. I want to ask you this as a final question. It's been great to have you back, Jordan, today. You've no idea. I'm delighted that you're back on the programme. Let me ask you this as a final question. Listen, you're 79. You got plenty of time left in you. Again, I'm not saying that to be kind or to be gentle. I think you got years ahead of you. But let's look to 30 years down the road. The chances are in 30 years, the chances are you won't be here. You might be, but the chances are you won't. I like to think that guys like you, this battle between good and evil, this celestial battle, I like to think that a guy like you, when you leave your physical body, that you'll have a part to play later on in the dimensions. Do you ever feel like that yourself?
Well, that is an interesting question because I do have thoughts in those lines, but I don't have any vision that I would play any important part on anything. I do, as you have said, I do feel that the mere fact that I have spent 60 years of my life pursuing a particular kind of knowledge must be because I was supposed to do that. I can't think of any other reason why I would have spent so much time reading and studying and traveling the world and talking and meeting people that I was supposed to meet. I have met so many impressive, important people that I've never told you about, Richie. I have been in the company of some extraordinarily brilliant and powerful people in this world that most humans would never even suspect that I even know about, much less be in their company. But I have been in the company of some of the most important people in this world. And the things they have said to me in private, I have to be very careful about what I say in public, because I have been told things that you would not believe by people who are in a position of power, and they're very believable. And I'm just amazed at how much people do not know about what's really going on. And I have to be very careful when I'm talking publicly, because I know things that other people don't know, and I don't want to be mocked and laughed at and ridiculed because I'm telling you something and I can't tell you who told me. Because if I tell you who told me and I tell you who I was in the company of and what they said, they're going to be in trouble. They're going to be in serious trouble because of who they are and the position they hold. And if it comes out that they told me something in private that I was not supposed to know, and now I'm talking about it publicly, they are going to pay a horrible price for talking to me in private. And I would not do that.
You wouldn't do it to them.
I would not do that.
Isn't that a nice thing, though? Because it means that within the corridors of the Illuminati, there are still men and women working from the inside. There mightn't be many of them, but there are some who are still trying to get information out to people. That gives me a feeling of optimism, Jordan.
I know I have talked to some of the most powerful men in America that actually have their finger on the pulse of the world and who are in charge of the world of commerce and money and war and military. I have talked with them in private, and they have done things to protect me and to help me and to show kindness and courtesy to me. They were very nice. They were very courteous to me. And they went out of their way to be generous with me. And I was amazed at how nice these people were to me when I was exposing their organization, and they are highly placed in the organizations that I'm exposing. And yet, when I met them personally, by chance, just as life would have it, I happened to meet one that was at the very top of this world, and they were very kind and courteous and nice to me. And they went out of their way to do things for me, to protect me, and to speak up for me, and to warn me, and to tell me how to act, and tell me where to go, where not to go, and what to talk about, what not to talk about. And so I do know that what you're saying is true.
Yeah.
Some of the most powerful Illuminati masters in this world are ultimately also human. And some of them are very nice. Some of them can be very nice if they choose to, on an individual basis. I mean, they may be like Al Capone was said to be very violent man when he was in the company of the mafiosis and the gangsters of Chicago and New York. He was feared by everyone because he was so violent and so incredibly treacherous if you mess with him. And yet there were times when he would be buying things for children. He would buy things for older people. He would pay their bills. He would go out of his way to buy food for people who needed food. And there's been a lot of stories about Al Capone, his kindness toward the poor people in his neighborhood. So on the one hand, yes, he was a very vicious gangster. But on the other hand, yes, he was a man, and he cared about children. He cared about his wife. He cared about people, and he went out of his way to do things to help them. And so I know that there are people in this world, because I've met them already, and I could sit and tell you, I could talk to you in private and tell you things that you would not believe, that I have heard from some of the most powerful people in this world.
And I know they tell you this stuff for you to put it out there. This is the thing. This is why I remain optimistic. We're just, I think we should leave it for today. I'd like you to come back next month when you get back from Nevada. Let me just give a mention again to the conference. Jordan is a keynote speaker at the UFO mega conference at the Aquarius Hotel Resort Casino in Nevada, Wednesday, February 19th. Listen, if you go to jordanmaxwellshow.com, you'll find a link there to where you can buy tickets. It's going on for a week. That's the UFO Mega Conference, Aquarius Hotel, a resort casino in Nevada. I also recommend that if you go to Jordan's website, again, it's jordanmaxwellshow.com, join the research website there. You can join that there. I recommend strongly that you do that, because there is a treasure of a vault. Speaking of Al Capone's vault, full of not only interesting, but very pertinent, relevant and important information that Jordan has gathered over the last 5-6 decades. So I recommend you do that, jordanmaxwellshow.com. Have a fantastic conference in Nevada. Great to catch up with you again. You know you're always
Richie,
welcome here.
I love you, and I appreciate your kindness toward me. And for a certainty, let's do another show, because there's so much more I'd like to tell the world, that I have to be very careful not to use names. I have to be careful in what I say, and I'm well aware of that, as you are also, because you're in the public eye. You got to be very careful what you say on radio, because you're talking to the public. I've been told that. By my lawyer friends. They tell me, if you go into a restaurant one night with about 10 of your friends, and you go in the back of the restaurant and you're sitting in a little area in the back just with your friends around the table, you can say anything you want that your friends will accept. You can call anybody anything you want, say anything derogatory about anybody, call them names. There's no limit to what you can say if you're in a little group in a restaurant. Why? Because it is a private conversation. But if you go out on the radio or in public and talk the same way you did last night in the restaurant, you could go to jail, because the government is empowered to protect the public. And so the government can come in and say, you are talking about stuff that is not allowed in our culture, and therefore you're going to jail. They're going to protect the people from your voice and from what you talk about. And so therefore you are not allowed to say certain things in public. And so this is why I appreciate what you do, Richie, because you're putting yourself on the line for the whole world to hear. And I have so many people who email me and say they heard me on your show. You'd be surprised how many people email me and contact me saying that they heard me on your show. So you have a large audience that you don't even know about. We all do, because if you're out there, and you never know where you're going to show up, who's going to hear you in what country. And so it's been a very exciting time to be alive, but I am very fearful of the future, because I'm telling you, I believe that by the October of this year, the world is going to enter into its darkest period that we've ever experienced on the earth. I believe, and the next time we could talk about it a little deeper if you wish.
Yeah, let's do that in February.
I believe that we are going to see the most incredibly dark period of bloodshed and violence and war that's going to happen toward October of this year. By the end of this year, the whole world is going to astrologically be in the age, is going to be in the constellation that's going to dominate our Earth in October. It's going to be the constellation of the dragon, what is it? The Scorpio. And Scorpio is going to be over the earth in the heavens. Scorpio. Well, scorpions are deadly. And one of the other constellations that's going to be involved with Scorpio in October of this year is Mars. Mars is the god of war, and Scorpio is deadly. It implies in my mind, I'm not God, I can't tell the future, but I believe right around in October or November, you're going to see the rise of a very violent, dark period for the human race, where the whole human family is going to be faced with some kind of a demonic depravity of some sort of a war that's going to frighten the whole world. That's what I think is coming in October of this year. We can talk about that later. It's just my ideas, but it's an idea based on a lot of research I've been doing over the years. And I tell you that we are entering into a very dark period right now. And we have till October. Between now and October, let's see where the world is going to be by that.
Well, to be fair to you, 2020 is something that's come up over the years. That's why I mentioned it earlier. I said earlier in the conversation, I said I'll mention 2020 later, because you've been saying to me for some years that this is going to be an important year, and that it's going to be a year of turmoil and chaos. So let's do that when you get back from Nevada. I'd love to be there in Nevada for that. I do hope that you get a video of it on the website jordanmaxwellshow.com, because I'd love to see it, but I'm sure you will. I'm sure the organisers will do anyway. So I'll give you I'll give you a week or so to get yourself together after the conference, around about late February, and I'll drop you a message and we'll arrange for you to come
I
back.
will contact you as soon as I get back and I'm ready.
Brilliant.
I'll contact you, and I'm sure I will have some really off the wall, strange stuff to tell you about that's going on in this world that most people have no idea in the world about. There are things going on in the oceans of the world that you've never been told. Things that are going on in the Atlantic Ocean that will absolutely knock you out if you knew what's going on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of Africa and off the coast of America. Some really strange things are going on right now that we can't talk about, but we'll talk about when we talk the next time.
Let's say to be continued. On that note, that's absolutely fascinating. It's whetting the appetite of our listeners, no doubt about it. So to be continued. I'll wait for your contact after you get back from Nevada. Listen,
I
finally,
certainly will.
Finally, thanks again for coming on today. It's a great pleasure to have you on. The listeners love having you on. I love having you on. Meant what I said at the top of the show. You coming on the radio with me in Spain years ago, it was an education, and it made my early, because I wasn't very comfortable talking about these subjects early on, because I'd come from the mainstream commercial background.
Of course.
And you made it very easy, and I'll never forget that. So thanks very much for doing it today. I'll give you the final word, and we'll wrap it up in 20 seconds. And this will be on YouTube really soon. It'll be on iTunes, it'll be on Spotify, it'll be on Podomatic. And for more on Jordan, tickets, and to join the research website, go to jordanmaxwellshow.com. 20 seconds, my great friend. Final word to you.
I would say go on my website, Jordan Maxwell Show. Don't forget to add the word show, because there are other websites out there with my name on them that I do not own. They're not my websites. And so my website is Jordan Maxwell Show. Go on my Jordan Maxwell Show, and you will see an advertisement for a research website that I have. Join the Research Society. Join the research website. Join the research website, because on that I am putting all of my work that I don't want to talk about in public. I'm putting it on the Research Society website, so you can go and download it and read it all and see the kind of things I'm talking about that I cannot talk about on radio. There are documents on there that you will not believe when you go on my research website and go to a particular area on that research website called Interesting Articles. Because I've got some articles on there that will blow your mind. Stuff you've never heard before that's actually happening in government and actually happening in the political realm that we're living in today. Things you've never heard before that will be absolutely astounding to you when you see them. So go on my jordanmaxwellshow.com and join my research website and look at all the pictures and diagrams and research papers and documents and pictures that I've been collecting over the years on all the dark stuff of the universe. It's all there, and I will be delighted to do another show with you anytime you want, Richie. And thank you for having me on. And good night.
Good night to you, my friend. Thanks, Jordan. Jordan Maxwell.
Bye-bye.
Jordan Maxwell live by Jordan live on the Richie Allen Radio Show. That's it, right? We've gone way over today. There was no way we wouldn't go over, of course. I'm glad to do that. Thanks to Jordan. Thanks to Caroline Stevens as well. Brilliant to have Caroline back on the programme in the first hour, talking about the European Union, the Lisbon Treaty, where it all might end up this year. Great to have her back on as well. Caroline Stevens, Seeking the Truth is her YouTube channel. Jordan can be found at jordanmaxwellshow.com. Keep an open mind That's all you got to do. I'll be back with you at 9:30 for the newspapers tomorrow, 9:30 on YouTube. From the BBG, it's bye from me. Look after yourselves and one another. Have a great Monday. See you tomorrow. Bye.